Inside a thunderous congressional chamber watched by 14 million Americans, Jasmine Crockett was ambushed. A red USB drive, a fabricated video, and Marjorie Taylor Greene accusing her of trying to shred the Constitution. Gasps exploded across the room. 5 Republicans rose shouting for her expulsion, calling her a threat to democracy itself. But Crockett didn't break. She stared straight ahead with steel in her spine, and then she detonated the truth. What she revealed wasn't just a lie. It was a multi-million-dollar deepfake conspiracy built to silence voices like hers. If they can digitally manufacture a villain out of thin air, how many real heroes have they already deleted from history? Stay with us. This is a story worth every second of your time, because what happened next changed everything. The air in the chamber was thick before the hearing even began. Thick with anticipation, with cameras, with tensions sharpened by days of online frenzy that had turned political discourse into a blood sport. A sea of press badges glinted under harsh fluorescent lights. Staffers whispered urgently into phones while political operatives shifted nervously in their chairs, creating a low hum beneath the surface tension. Everyone could feel it building. This wasn't just another routine hearing. This was theater, and everyone in that room knew exactly who the villain was supposed to be. At the center of it all sat Jasmine Crockett, hands clasped firmly in front of her, posture steady as stone, but her eyes unreadable. She had that look of someone who knew a storm was coming but refused to seek shelter. She knew something was about to happen. She just didn't know how far they would be willing to go to destroy her. Then it happened with surgical precision. The chairwoman cleared her throat with authority and said those 4 words that would change everything. "Representative Greene, you have the floor." The room fell into a hush so deep it almost hurt your ears. The kind of silence that comes right before lightning strikes. Marjorie Taylor Greene stood slowly, deliberately, as if every movement had been choreographed for maximum dramatic impact. She didn't look left or right at her colleagues. She looked ahead, directly into the unblinking eyes of television cameras, and indirectly at every American who had tuned in to witness what she was about to orchestrate. From her inner jacket pocket, she produced a small red USB stick, holding it up like a weapon of mass destruction. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "What I'm about to show you is not opinion. It's not speculation. It's evidence of a clear and present danger sitting in this very room." The words hung in the air like poison gas, and she walked that USB down to the technician's desk without another word, handed it over with ceremonial precision, and said just loud enough for every microphone to capture, "Play it now." The screen behind the panel flared to life with electric intensity. Static danced for a moment like digital snow, then cleared to reveal something that would haunt the nation. Jasmine Crockett's face appeared on screen, standing at a podium under white-hot lights. Her expression was fierce, commanding, exactly the kind of image you'd expect from a powerful speech. But what followed wasn't inspiration. It was a dagger aimed straight at the heart of democracy. "White people are not fit to lead this country." The sentence rang out with devastating clarity. It sounded exactly like her voice, her cadence, her unique rhythm that millions recognized. For a split second, even her closest allies stared in disbelief, their faces contorting with confusion and horror. A collective gasp swept across the chamber like a cold wind carrying death. Before anyone could recover from the shock, the clip continued its assault. Same podium, tighter camera frame, more intimate and therefore more damning. "If I'm given real power, I will rip the Constitution to shreds." The reaction this time wasn't just shock. It was pure, unfiltered fury that seemed to vibrate through the marble floors. One Republican lawmaker leaped to his feet, his face turning crimson red, veins bulging from his neck like rope. "She should be removed from office immediately," he shouted with the force of a man who believed he was saving America itself. Marjorie didn't wait for the chaos to settle into any semblance of order. She returned to center stage with the confidence of someone who had just delivered a knockout punch, her heels clicking against the floor with the finality of a judge's gavel. She turned to face the cameras, to address the nation directly, and spoke with the righteous venom of someone who believed she was exposing a traitor. "You heard it with your own ears, America. This isn't a colleague. This isn't a representative of the people. This is a hostile force that has been planted, empowered, and protected by the silence of those who should know better. She raised her hand and pointed, not directly at Jasmine, but close enough to leave no doubt about her target. This is not democracy, people. This is a warning shot fired from within our own government. From the Republican side of the chamber came thunderous applause, desperate desk pounding, and cheers as if they had just caught an enemy spy red-handed in the act of treason. It wasn't justice unfolding before America's eyes. It was a public execution broadcast in high definition, complete with a jury that had already decided the verdict. And yet, through all of this manufactured chaos and orchestrated outrage, Jasmine Crockett didn't move a single muscle. She sat there like a statue carved from dignity itself. The camera slowly zoomed in on her face, capturing something that would become iconic. She sat perfectly upright, hands still folded with mathematical precision, not even blinking as the storm raged around her. But the look on her face wasn't confusion, wasn't fear, wasn't the outrage that everyone expected to see. It was silence, but not the kind that surrenders to overwhelming force. It was the kind of silence that watches carefully, that listens to every lie, that calculates the precise moment to strike back. She wasn't defeated by this ambush. She was gathering intelligence, collecting evidence, preparing for a counterattack that would shake the very foundations of their deception. That stillness, that calm in the eye of a political hurricane, that complete refusal to give them the reaction they desperately wanted, was what millions of Americans saw on their television screens. Not the fake clip designed to destroy her, not the shouting and manufactured outrage, but a woman standing alone under siege, sitting in full view of the nation, refusing to break under pressure that would have crushed weaker souls. The image burned through every television screen across the country, and even those who had believed the fabricated clip began asking themselves a question they weren't prepared for. Why isn't she flinching? And just when the outrage from the fake video should have reached its devastating peak, Marjorie Taylor Greene stepped forward again with the predatory instincts of someone who smelled blood in the water. This time, she went straight for the throat with words sharpened not by facts, but by years of practiced contempt and racial hatred disguised as political discourse. Her voice took on a mocking tone, smug and self-assured like a schoolyard bully who had found the perfect victim. "You know," she said with a thin-lipped grin that contained no warmth, "I was once criticized for calling her a screaming Barbie. Well, now America knows I was absolutely right." The nervous laughter that followed wasn't joyous or celebratory. It was the uncomfortable sound people make when they witness something crossing a line they didn't know existed. Yet Marjorie pressed forward with the intoxication of someone drunk on their own cruelty. Her eyes locked on Jasmine like a hunter who had cornered wounded prey. Radical Barbie, loudmouth diva, ghetto congresswoman. Each phrase landed like a physical slap, intentional and carefully rehearsed for maximum humiliation. She dragged out the syllables, enunciating every single word with theatrical precision, as if she wanted these racial slurs etched permanently into the congressional record for all of history to remember. These weren't accidental slips of the tongue born from passion or anger. They were calculated character assassinations delivered not in some backroom or private conversation, but in the sacred halls of American governmental power, broadcast live to millions. Across the chamber, Jasmine sat completely unmoved by the verbal assault. No gasp of shock, no angry rebuttal, no reaction whatsoever, just her sitting alone at that table with a sealed envelope resting beneath her fingertips like an unopened truth waiting patiently for exactly the right moment to be revealed. Marjorie noticed the envelope, of course she did. She leaned forward slightly, her voice thick with mockery. "What's that little envelope there, Jasmine? A love letter from your public relations team? Or maybe it's your formal apology to the American people." This time, the response from the gallery wasn't applause or encouragement. It was hesitation, an audible shift in the room's atmosphere like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. The arrogance of Marjorie's performance had tipped over from political theater into something that felt sour and rotten in everyone's mouth. And when Jasmine finally stood, it wasn't to defend her dignity with matching outrage or to respond to personal attacks with personal attacks. It was to dismantle the entire performance with something far more dangerous than emotion. It was to deploy the devastating power of undeniable truth. Jasmine Crockett rose slowly, calmly, without raising her voice or changing her measured tone. There was no need for theatrical anger, no need to match insult with insult, no need to descend to their level. She adjusted the microphone with professional care, glanced respectfully toward the chairwoman, and said with crystal clarity, "Madam Chair, I respectfully request 5 minutes to respond without interruption." The chairwoman gave a small but significant nod of approval, and in that seemingly simple moment, everything in the chamber fundamentally changed. Jasmine placed a single page of paper on the table in front of her, smooth and deliberate in her movements. "First," she said, her voice steady and sharp as a surgical scalpel, "I formally request verification of the source of that video clip and the complete identification of the person or organization who produced it." She paused just long enough to let those words settle into every corner of the chamber. This wasn't a vague denial from a desperate politician. This was a formal, legal demand for accountability that carried the weight of congressional procedure. She reached into her folder again and pulled out a second sheet of paper, clearly a technical report stamped with official metadata codes. "This is a comprehensive technical breakdown of the video you just watched." Her tone remained cold, composed, and completely factual. She tapped the technical report lightly as she read from it. "That video clip contains what's called a digital watermark, which is essentially a hidden fingerprint embedded directly into the file itself. According to this analysis, it was generated using a software program called Revo AI version 3.0. The room didn't gasp in shock. Not yet, but you could feel the energy beginning to change, like the atmospheric pressure dropping before a major storm hits. Jasmine looked up from the technical report, her voice still perfectly calm, but now carrying an edge that could cut glass. Revo AI version 3.0 is not available to the general public. It's exclusively licensed to government contractors and a handful of elite media laboratories with special security clearances. She let that information hang in the air for a moment. So the question that every American should be asking right now is simple. Who exactly has access to that kind of sophisticated software? And just as that crucial question lingered in the air like a trap waiting to be sprung, Jasmine reached for the sealed envelope that had been sitting in front of her with the quiet resolve of someone who hadn't just come to defend herself against false accusations. She had come to deliver evidence that would expose a conspiracy. Her fingers slid under the envelope flap with the same unshakable calm she had maintained since the moment this hearing began. The room leaned forward collectively, even her sworn enemies unable to resist the magnetic pull of revelation. Jasmine unfolded the first document from inside the envelope and raised it just high enough for the cameras to clearly capture the official header. "This is the complete business registration for a company based in Florida called Patriot Focus, LLC. This company was officially formed exactly 1 year and 7 months ago. It has no listed employees on any public records, no functioning website that anyone can find, and no physical address except for a locked mailbox at a strip mall in Fort Lauderdale." The words sounded almost bureaucratic until you understood exactly what they meant. This wasn't a real company designed to conduct legitimate business. This was a shell corporation specifically created to hide money and activities from public scrutiny. She pulled out a second page and glanced briefly but meaningfully toward Marjorie Taylor Greene before laying it beside the first document. "This is a power of attorney document signed by John Halperin." That name dropped into the chamber like a weighted stone thrown into still water. Nobody in that room needed a history lesson to understand the significance. Mr. Halperin served as the campaign attorney and chief finance coordinator for Representative Greene's super PAC during her 2020 election cycle. His signature appears on multiple official filings directly tied to this Patriot Focus company. The third document came out of the envelope more slowly, with more weight and ceremony. Jasmine didn't hold this one up for the cameras to see. Instead, she simply read it aloud, letting each word fall into the chamber like individual bombs. Campaign code name, Operation Loudmouth. Objective, neutralize high-visibility black congresswomen using fabricated media and AI-generated visual distortions. She stopped reading there, letting the absolute brutality of those words sink into every corner of the room. No editorial commentary, no emotional reaction, just silence. But it was a silence that screamed louder than any accusation could have. Dr. Rima Patel entered the hearing room without hesitation or fanfare. She wasn't a politician seeking advantage, not a media pundit looking for attention, not a party loyalist trying to score points for her team. She was the kind of professional presence that silences a room with credentials alone, the lead researcher at Stanford University's prestigious artificial intelligence laboratory. She raised her right hand, took the oath with solemn precision, and sat down before the microphone cluster. My name is Dr. Rima Patel. I am a senior researcher at Stanford University's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, where I specialize in neural speech synthesis and deep learning video generation technologies. She opened a slim folder with scientific precision, removed a single page of technical analysis, and placed it carefully on the table in front of her like evidence being presented in a criminal trial. The video clip played earlier today in this chamber is definitively a deepfake. The room didn't erupt in shock or surprise. It froze completely. The word deepfake didn't need translation or explanation. In that context, in that moment, it was simultaneously a technical diagnosis, a legal verdict, and a moral warning about the future of truth itself. Dr. Patel continued without pause, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years studying exactly this kind of digital manipulation. Our comprehensive analysis indicates a voice matching rate of 91%, which is technically high but not perfect enough to fool sophisticated detection software. The synchronization between lip movement and audio track is off by approximately 230 milliseconds, which falls far outside the range of natural human speech patterns. She rotated a printed technical image toward the panel, highlighting telltale signs that would be invisible to casual observers but unmistakable to trained experts. Additionally, we successfully extracted metadata from a leaked download of the original file, and that data clearly shows the clip was generated just 2 days ago using graphics processing hardware registered under a government contractor identification tag. That sentence hung in the air with more weight than any previous revelation. Dr. Patel adjusted the microphone slightly, her voice becoming quieter but somehow even more certain and authoritative. This video clip was absolutely not created in someone's basement as a prank or amateur project. This kind of file, with this level of technical polish, this degree of sophisticated detail, this quality of audio synthesis, cannot be created without substantial funding, without professional expertise, and most importantly, without access to restricted software and hardware. She paused for the first time since beginning her testimony. In my professional opinion, based on 20 years of research in this field, this deepfake could not have been produced without significant budget and institutional power behind it. And just when the truth had carved its way through every layer of denial and deception, Jasmine showed the room something profound about justice. The room hadn't fully recovered from Dr. Patel's devastating scientific testimony when the large screen lit up again. At first, the audience thought they were seeing another replay. But then a voice rang out, clear and unapologetic. I personally authorized the Operation Loudmouth campaign targeting radical congresswomen. It was time someone finally shut these people up permanently. The figure speaking appeared to be Marjorie Taylor Greene herself. For one flickering second, absolutely no one in the chamber breathed. Then chaos erupted. Marjorie shot up from her seat. That is completely fake. That is not real. But Jasmine didn't rise from her chair. She turned toward Marjorie with a calm that felt heavier than rage, and spoke 9 words that would be remembered forever. So now you know what it feels like to be lied about. The impact of Jasmine Crockett's words still lingered like a tremor beneath the chamber floor. And while the room absorbed the full weight of that moment, something irreversible began to unfold that would change the political landscape forever. Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't just under attack from the opposing party anymore. She was being questioned by members of her own political family. Congressman Bryce Madison from Utah leaned forward into his microphone and spoke with calm resolve. Madam Chair, based on the substantial evidence introduced here today, I believe this committee has a constitutional responsibility to examine the conduct of Representative Greene's campaign operations, specifically regarding the use of digitally altered material during an official congressional hearing. The chamber didn't erupt in partisan celebration this time. It simply froze in recognition of what was happening. This wasn't opposition research or Democratic Party attack strategy. This was a member of Marjorie's own party drawing a line in the sand. Another Republican voice joined the growing chorus of institutional concern. This one from Congressman Williams of Texas, who added with obvious reluctance but clear conviction, "We cannot and will not ignore documented evidence of this magnitude. If these financial records and email communications are authentic, and nothing presented thus far disputes their legitimacy, then someone used fabricated video evidence to deliberately mislead this committee and the American people watching at home." The shift was seismic and irreversible. Marjorie Taylor Greene had once commanded her party's attention like a general commanding troops, fierce and loud and seemingly uncompromising in her conservative principles. But now those same colleagues looked at her with measured distance, not opposition exactly, but something far more politically dangerous. Doubt about her judgment, her methods, and her long-term viability as a political ally. The chairwoman, who until this moment had presided over the hearing like a referee trying to maintain order in a fight too brutal and chaotic to control, finally leaned forward with renewed authority. Her voice was steady, clipped, and procedural in the way that signals serious institutional consequences. This committee will immediately begin a formal review of all super PACs and financial transactions connected to Representative Greene's campaign operations. I am hereby instructing the committee clerk to issue subpoenas as necessary to compel the production of all relevant documents and communications. She paused to let the gravity of those words settle into every corner of the chamber. Effective immediately. There was no dramatic gavel bang, no rising applause from the Democratic side, no partisan celebration, just those three words hanging in the air like a quiet but definitive sentence. Marjorie's carefully constructed political mask finally shattered completely. "Oh, here we go," she shouted, standing so quickly that her chair nearly toppled backward behind her. "This is exactly what you people wanted from the very beginning. Cancel culture in its most disgusting form. Targeting me because I'm a white conservative woman who refuses to be silenced by your woke agenda." But her words didn't land with the force they once carried. No one stood up to defend her. No one nodded in agreement with her assessment. The silence that followed wasn't uncertainty or fear. It was quiet, institutional detachment. The chamber had seen all the receipts, heard all the evidence, and watched all the reactions. Her anger no longer felt righteous or principled. It felt desperate, performed, and increasingly isolated from reality. Jasmine remained seated throughout Marjorie's entire meltdown. No smirk of satisfaction, no partisan gloating, no attempt at rebuttal or response. Instead, she turned her attention to the technician beside the main screen and gave a small, precise nod that carried more authority than any shouted command could have. The room dimmed slightly as the monitor came to life one final time. But this wasn't another bombshell revelation or surprise twist. This was something far more dangerous to everything Marjorie had tried to accomplish with her fabricated evidence. This was the simple, unvarnished truth. The original video began to play, completely unedited, uncut, and fully intact from beginning to end. Jasmine's real voice echoed through the chamber, calm but unyielding. "We must confront injustice wherever we find it, not deny its existence for political convenience." Then came the sentence that completely closed the loop. "We don't seek to destroy the Constitution. We demand that it protect all Americans equally." As the screen faded to black and the chamber sat suspended between shock and the slow recognition of what justice might actually look like, Jasmine Crockett did not celebrate her vindication. She did not smirk with satisfaction. She did not address her critics or gloat about her victory over the forces that had tried to silence her. Instead, she turned to face the only audience that really mattered. The camera lens that connected her directly to millions of Americans watching this unfold in real time. She faced that camera without blinking, without hesitation, the lens capturing something in her eyes that went far beyond the day's political battle. There was weight in her gaze, not just from the morning's ordeal, but from years and decades of being talked over, systematically edited out of important conversations, and digitally erased from narratives that should have included her voice from the beginning. There was no sound anywhere in the room, not even the shuffle of papers or the scratch of a pen against paper. The entire chamber, packed with lawmakers and aides and members of the press corps, had been reduced to absolute silence. Her voice cut through that quiet like crystal under pressure, clear and unbreakable. They can manufacture a fake version of Jasmine Crockett, but I am here, alive, real, and I cannot be programmed to disappear. The sentence wasn't delivered loudly. It didn't need volume to carry its power. Its strength came from the unshakable presence of a woman who had refused to vanish when it would have been so much easier to just scream back or break down or give them the emotional reaction they wanted to use against her. The silence in the chamber held firm. It didn't break or crack under pressure. It actually deepened and became more profound. 10 seconds passed, then 11, then 12 full seconds of absolute quiet. No one dared move or speak or even shift in their seats. It wasn't discomfort they were feeling. It was reverence, the kind of deep respect that only genuine historical moments can command. In the press gallery, a seasoned political reporter known throughout Washington for her cynicism and sharp analysis let her pen fall to her lap. Her whisper came soft but firm, just loud enough for the nearest microphone to capture for the congressional record. History is happening right now. No one in that chamber corrected her statement. No one rolled their eyes at what might have seemed like hyperbole. For once, no one had anything to add or any commentary to offer because they all understood they were witnessing something that transcended normal political theater. Then slowly, deliberately, Jasmine lowered her gaze from the camera and reached into a thin folder beside her chair. She pulled out a single piece of paper, folded and worn at the edges but carefully protected and preserved. It wasn't an official document or a legal brief or anything typed on government letterhead. It was handwritten in looping, uneven lines that spoke of youth and hope and the kind of vulnerability that comes from believing your voice might actually matter. "This," Jasmine said, her voice maintaining that same measured calm that had carried her through the entire ordeal, "is a letter from a 13-year-old girl in Alabama named Maya Johnson." She paused as she gently unfolded the paper, not for dramatic effect or theatrical timing, but with the careful attention of someone who understood that sometimes a handwritten note from a child carries more truth and moral weight than any polished statement from professional politicians. "Dear Representative Crockett, I was suspended from school last month for speaking during morning announcements about Black Lives Matter. The principal said I was being too loud, too disruptive, too much of a problem. But I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I was just trying to make people understand that Black lives do matter. I saw you on TV and you remind me that someday I might get to speak up for people too, if I don't let them make me quiet first. Please don't let them make you quiet either." She wasn't reading for applause or political advantage. She was reading so that a voice that had once been forcibly silenced would finally be heard by people with the power to protect other voices like hers. But this fight doesn't end in Congress. It begins in every inbox, every town hall, every vote cast hoping for someone to finally turn on the light. You don't need a title to make noise. You just need to believe the silence isn't serving you anymore. And now the silence has been shattered. What will you do with the echo? If the story moved you, don't let it stop at you. Share it. Discuss it. Demand laws that protect truth. Call out manipulation when you see it. Not just on screens, but in systems. Don't wait for another Jasmine to stand alone in a room full of lies. Be the next voice they can't silence. Because every time we let a deepfake define reality, we're one step closer to forgetting who we really are. Stand up. Speak out. Make noise before the next truth gets rewritten or deleted altogether. The question Jasmine asked still echoes. If they can digitally manufacture a villain, how many real heroes have they already erased? That question doesn't belong to her alone. It belongs to every child told they were too much, every woman punished for being too loud, too black, too unafraid. In a world trying to clone, sculpt, and script authentic voices into digestible shadows, Jasmine Crockett redefined what it means to be real. She showed that dignity is louder than deception. That truth, real and lived and unedited, always takes longer to surface. But when it does, it doesn't ask for applause. It demands accountability. They called her loud because they've never heard truth ring clear enough to shake them. But loudmouths don't break democracy. They just break the programming. Thank you for watching until this moment and for standing with us on this journey for justice. Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know what moved you most in this story. Together, our voices make a difference that no algorithm can fake, no deepfake can replicate, and no conspiracy can silence.